To
Welcome to a
support.
new edition of the Boundary Breakers Collective. And today I am excited to welcome Natalya Berdikyan. She's a holistic leadership coach and global speaker who transforms how leaders and organizations approach success. Natalya's mission is simple yet profound. Well-being fuels achievement. Through her Life by Design Academy, she partners with CEOs and teams to boost energy, deepen collaboration, and drive results without sacrificing mental or physical health. A burnout survivor turned entrepreneur, Natalya blends Harvard trained nutrition expertise with leadership coaching, yoga, and breathwork to help high performers thrive. She's also a world traveler, a former chocolate factory GM, and an artist at heart, proving that creativity and business savvy can coexist. Natalya, welcome to the Boundary Breakers Collective. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Helena. Pleasure to be here. Doing wonderfully. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You work to help leaders lead well by living well. That resonates deeply with me, and I'm sure also with our audience. Let's explore how to break free from hustle culture and build success that truly sustains. And let's start with maybe, if that is okay for you, with some of your boundary pushing anecdotes. Can you tell me why you consider yourself as a boundary breaker?
Boundary pushing. Let's see. I need to start in childhood, I'm sure. And it's always a borderline with some traumatic experiences and everything, as many people might have experienced. Let's see if I can tell a little story. I
Mhm.
come originally from former Soviet Union, where we had plenty of limitations, as one can imagine, and having grown up with beautiful, intelligent, interesting families and everything, at some point I caught myself living with an alcoholic stepfather. Not the best situation for growing up. And at that age, I thought something has to change. So let's push some boundaries there. One can either accept the situation and cope with it and
Mhm.
settle for less, and someone else might find the opportunities to break through and to push the boundaries and to expand and find a different way in life. So I did at
Yeah, which is
16.
difficult as a child, isn't it? Because you're still dependent of your parents, right? So,
For sure. I was always a very curious one, and challenging status quo. And luckily, I was given to myself in terms of space and freedom. As my mom was working, my father took off, so I was pretty much left to myself. And that also gave me an opportunity to learn and to challenge the situations and find myself, right? So by 16, with all of that and slightly uncomfortable situation, living house situation, I went to US as an exchange student and left my country in the 90s. It was a big shift by then. From Moscow to California in the 90s is a very big difference at the time.
I can only
Uh,
imagine. Mm.
Now it's less huge, the difference, but back then it definitely was. So I never returned back home to my home country, and since end of 90s I lived in Europe, and that makes it 6 different countries. I think I moved 25 times in 25 years, breaking
Oh,
through, adapting, changing cultures, languages, expanding the horizons, and constantly challenging status quo and trying not to lose myself in this whole journey. And quite the opposite to find, actually.
you make it sound like it was like very easy and logical, but I can only imagine if you leave your home country and your family at 16, and then basically you keep moving or traveling or staying in different places, finding your way, building your network again. What qualities do you believe that really helped you to do that? And what qualities can other women that want to achieve more of that independence and that courage, what think you think they should look for to develop further or to find support in?
It's a very good question. Thank you. I always thought of adaptivity and resilience and
Mm-hmm.
agility and ability to be open and flexible. At times, one need to, or in my case, I needed to show the confidence or act like I know it. One might say fake it till you make it, but later I understood it's not about that. It's really about having the kind of energy and attitude, rather, that it will be fine. What's the worst thing that can happen? And
I like that
uh,
question. Yeah. It's about trusting the universe, basically, and trusting yourself.
that came later, but I just knew that I will be fine. Trusting self without knowing, meaning that if
Yeah.
I could find the way out in that situation that was then, when I was 5 or 7 or 16, I could do it now, definitely. And so adapting to change and even loving change for everything it can bring. Not saying it's not challenging. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's painful or not painful or whatever, but seeing the opportunities in it and at the end loving it. Hence, moving. If one moves 25 times in 25 years, you can say, do you love it? Do you love change? You love moving, or are you escaping? So there was a very interesting reflections throughout all these years on all of these topics I just mentioned.
I like that. Loving change and embracing change, also sometimes embracing paradoxes, is something that a lot of us are not used to do because we like the habits and the comfort zone of knowing things, or at least the perception of knowing what is going to happen and how it's going to be. And for me, also, it is about being curious and being not judgmental in terms of if something is different or if something is not coming up or showing up as you expected. It's about not rejecting it or not going into resistance, but like you say, looking for opportunities, looking for possibilities. So it's a mindset, it's an attitude. And I strongly believe that we can grow a different mindset, that we can change the way that we look at things. Some of us were born with it or raised in it. I guess that's maybe how it was with you, because you were like thrown into independence and taking care of yourself at very early stage, where a lot of us are overprotected and put into a framework or a system that is prepared by very loving and well-meaning parents. But that makes it sometimes a little bit more difficult to break free and to say, no, okay, this is a system, this is a pathway, but there are other pathways. When you
Definitely.
have been kind of educated on one pathway, I guess it might be a bit more difficult to choose others. For you, it's becoming something embodied
For
because,
sure. Also, as a foreigner, one might say, for 30 years in my adult life, really, it's as a foreigner, you one might feel always out of place and needing to adapt and fit in. And so that from one side, it also creates this great skill of adaptivity and ability to blend in and learn the culture and the language, well, to the best of our abilities, because clearly every country in Europe, we have many, and one might say Holland and Belgium are the same, and they might speak the same language, totally different because I lived in both. And so having that sensitivity and cultural agility, building that really is part of the thing. And like uh, the chocolate factory I had, we had 20 different nationalities. And so communication with every culture is different. So going back to your question, what helps is really building that ability to communicate and to relate to people, more so to relate. And with that comes the cultural sensitivity, understanding, empathy, and all of that, which I must say did come later with experience, because at the beginning I had my ways. I had a certain cultural habits that one might call stereotyping and everything. Russians behave in that way, the Dutch behave in that way, the Latins are like that. But end of the day, getting out of the box and not being defined by where I come from or the culture, the history, and then we go back to the background, the habits, and we talk about behaviors and habits, personalities. Nothing is permanent because we all have the ability to learn and grow and change, and clearly not the same person as 30 years ago, nor even a year ago, because of that openness and agility and ability to learn, willingness to learn, and not just be stuck in the ways, because like that, we're not going to break through anywhere. Just going to be in the same place, wondering why they're the same results. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that. And it is about the quality of the interactions that we have. And when you're talking about this agility and blending in, and at the same time also staying true to yourself, it is about the quality of the relationship that you have with yourself in first as a priority. Because if you really feel confident and you really know who you are and you really know about your intentions and your values and how you want to show up, it also makes it easier to, you say, connect with other people, even if they are different, even if they speak a different language or they have different habits, and you have to learn in order to, like you say, blend in, or to be just even also organizationally and logistically working together or being on the same project. And the quality of the relationship that you have with yourself is so defining the quality of the relationship that you have with other people. And if you can keep those in the harmony and aligned together, also, of course, with the quality of the relationship that you have with the world. How do you look at the world? Is it like a very dangerous place with a lot of risks, or is it just a big field of opportunities and possibilities? And this is, of course, something that we, like you already said, from childhood, we are influenced or sometimes indoctrinated with these worldviews and how we see others and how we see ourselves. And these are like the three basic elements to work on, to me. If you want to grow, if you want to change, if you want to be, like you say, embracing change and see it as a possibility and an opportunity and a fun thing, actually. How does that resonate? Is that something that
Yeah,
you worked with as
totally.
well?
It's a journey, and it's so important, as you mentioned, to be aligned with our values. And I have a lot of clients that say, I need to be a better leader and have better communication skills and emotional intelligence and all of that. Yes, all of that is true. And yes, we might communicate differently to blue workers or white workers or our corporate environment or people at home. But at the end of the day, if we are not aligned with our, what at the core of who we are and our values, we constantly going to be not at our best and either frustrated or feeling bad for one or the other reason, and either blaming others or blaming ourselves, or coping and tolerating and not being in our top potential and zone of genius and that great state of flow and great energy. It's not doing us any favors. So in my whole journey of while adapting, yes, at some part in some points, because the grass seemed so nice and green on the other side, because it seemed like a picture perfect from Cinderella books. And everybody coming from my country would love to have that situation, that either job or career or business or family or car for that matter, if we go into any material stuff. But at the end of the day, that reality check, is this who I am? Is that
Mhm.
where I want to continue and continue going? Or is it actually draining me and affecting me mentally, emotionally, and therefore physically? That's how I got to the whole well-being piece, is living to high expectations of society, of myself, of living the picture perfect and fitting into it, and all of that, understanding that actually there is no alignment. And it's affecting me physically as well, mentally as well, the way I lead, because I'm not at my best. There was a whole need for turnaround. People, yeah, you mentioned the burnout. People go into emotional instability, dependencies, burnouts, depressions. They just flee or become defensive or sick. When
Mhm.
we are not in balance or in alignment, in harmony with ourselves, it actually comes across in many different ways, and our bodies normally take the hit the most. Gradually, we might not see it at the beginning, but gradually pushing through and trying to have all this, living up to expectations and the high pressure and the performance and all of that. And now working with high performance leaders and CEOs and everything, I see a lot the kind of pressure they're under, whether it's the perception, an outside perception, or the pressure they put themselves on, because that's how they have to do it, it affects them a lot. And to the point of they can't function to their optimal state anymore, physically and emotionally. It's like going in motion and autopilot. And
Mhm.
at times more is not better, and less is more. So bringing them back to themselves, to their body, and seeing where can they be at their best in reality. Because if they don't have that stress and pressure, at times self-imposed, they will be much better performing and better leaders and resonate at a different level and enjoy and have more fulfillment and satisfaction altogether. So everybody wins. But that
Mhm.
tweak needs to happen. And in many cases, it happens when people just completely get either sick or lose their families, relationships, marriages, businesses, money, or something else happens, a car crash or something drastic. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can actually correct it on the way so they can live the fuller life and run the business in a different way.
What is different for you now? Because you have been there. You have been in this kind of what we call rat race, where everything is coming at you and you want to perform at the highest level without listening to your body or what you need. And then you crash. So many of us do. You are like a very high level. You're a very high level coach and consultant. Again, you work at high level and in a very demanding industry. So, what is it that you did differently now in order not to have that pitfall anymore? So, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how we can use that, how our audience can use that as an example or a source of inspiration for that way?
Definitely. Good question. I'd say, as simple as it is, prioritize self and self-care. And by that, I
Mhm.
don't mean, one might say, it's selfish. I have a lot of responsibilities. I have a business to run. I have a family, children. People depend on me at home or in the office. Yes, for sure. But if you're not well, what can you really give back? How much
Mhm.
energy do you really have when you're not at your best? When you haven't slept enough? When your nutrition is draining your body to the fact that basically you're running on some junk food, chocolate and coffee, milk chocolate with a lot of sugar. And I know about chocolate because I've been in production of chocolate. And it's not sustainable. It's a short-term effect. And prioritizing being well to do well, and they can be in simple steps. And a lot has to do with self boundaries, right? Not to be filling in your agenda or someone else be filling in your agenda, which happens a lot with something that you shouldn't be, you're not the one that should be doing in the first place, right? Because your energy is not better used in this. It's about taking a walk in the morning and going into the nature, or taking walking meetings for that matter, which is healthy for both parties. It stimulates the brain, it stimulates creativity, and a whole lot of other things, clearly good for health. basic things of nutrition, of sleep, drinking water, not drinking coffee throughout the whole day. I don't drink alcohol for 5 years now, not to mention, of course, all my yoga and qigong practices and all of that to really balance the energy, mind and body, and align the breath with our mind and with the body. And so it's not just fancy yoga positions or going to the gym. It's really finding the balance,
Yeah.
start listening to the body and giving this a break, because we can't solve the problems from the same place they started, which is here. And so
Yeah.
descending it a little bit to the body, because the
Mm.
body never lies. And that's something we ignore a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting that what I experience sometimes with clients or with women that I've worked with, that is that we all know that, right? It's about sleep, it's about what we eat and what we don't eat or drink and don't drink. It's about exercising, it's about yoga or meditation, it's about a lot of things. And then I hear women say, really? How do I do that? With a full-time job, I have 3 children that have to go to school, that every morning I have to make their box with healthy food so they don't eat the junk that is served at school. Still, I have my mother who's very ill, who has dementia. I don't have time for all these things. And I can understand that. If you talk with women or work with women that are already on a very busy schedule and where you risk that they might start feeling guilty or blame themselves not finding that time, does it also work if you can just start with small things, but that are very, very intentional? Or if you can start doing things that you can stack. For example, when I do my calls, I stand and I stand on a grounding mat, which I actually don't really need because I am outside, like you say, for this morning and evening walks every day. But still, or I use some essential oils, or I do a very short breath exercise just before I go into an important meeting or I have an important call. Is that also something that you can advise or support for women that at least have the perception that they don't have the time to do all these things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly. I just read and published an article about time management, because at the end of the day, it's not about time, it's about energy. Because you might have all the time in the world and stare at this computer and produce nothing if you don't have the
Yeah.
right energy. Or you might have
It's,
5 minutes or 1 minute, not even talk about an hour. And yes, you can do something in 1 minute and 5 minutes and stack those to elevate the energy. And so, yeah, not everybody has half an hour, 20 minutes, 1 hour for meditation and yoga and breath work. And there is no need for that. I really start with practical 1 minute breathing exercises. One can do in bed,
yeah.
on the go, taking a 1 minute break every hour and just stand and notice the emotions, physical sensations, and everything. Take an inhale and a slower exhale. Very important, a slower exhale to activate our parasympathetic system, which actually brings us the calm and the balance and the tranquility and not constantly going. So we activate with the inhale and we slower down with a slower exhale. Things like that. And there's
Yeah.
plenty of stuff you can find on my website and YouTube, little short videos. And it's all accessible. And yes, you're right. Everybody knows it. You can chat GTP and Google every advice and tool one can, but it's about putting into practice. And that's why it's important to prioritize self,
Mm.
just to note, and have the support system. Just like I needed support system to integrate in a new company or a new country, having the people around that are like-minded, that are oriented into the same thing, finding the community, a therapist, a coach, a person, whether it's in the family or outside, that can help with these accountability points
That has
of
your back. Yeah.
exactly. And that's very important. And we're not alone. And if
Yeah.
we haven't managed to take 1 minute or 5 minutes, let's recommit. I'll do it in the next hour, next day. And
Yeah,
you mentioned the point of guilt and
exactly.
the point of judgment. And as we work in coaching, that's part of the thing that we're working on. Guilt and judgment are lower resonating emotions. They are,
Mhm.
we all know, they're not useful. It's being in the past and daunting on that and taking that negative energy with us, which is not constructive, creative, doesn't access our potential and everything because it's the past. Now, being present and being present in the moment without self-judgment and the guilt already elevates our energy, our resonance, our consciousness, our potential, our power, our access to all the great stuff
Mm.
we have in here to make great decisions and have more energy to act and perform. So working on that self-judgment, just not judge ourselves, isn't a big thing. And note when we are judging ourselves, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I feel guilty. I use that time for myself
Yeah.
than for the kids or the employees. And why should I leave that part of my schedule open for myself if all these people need support? We come back to the point. If I'm not well, what good can I
How can
do?
you do that? Yeah, can you do that?
Not selfish. It's
Yeah.
simply about energy management. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. I love what you said about boundaries because this is a boundary breaking collective. We're talking about breaking boundaries, about how to do things differently from what is in the box and what we are supposed to be doing. There's so many societal boxes and ideas and judgments. And at the same time, it is about setting boundaries, and especially for self care and for this self talk and all these things. It is also about setting boundaries, setting time boundaries. What is it? What time do I carve out for myself? Or to do with somebody else, but in not in a working modus. It is about setting boundaries in terms of saying no to things in order to be able to say yes to other things and to say yes to yourself. These boundaries are basically they're double. Yeah. At the one side, you break them. At the other side, you need to maintain and to set boundaries so that you can do what is aligned with who you are and what you want to manifest in life. And that's a balance that is sometimes a bit difficult to keep, right? Mm.
and it's all about balance at the end. And when we feel frustrated or tired or in conflict with ourselves and others, just need to reconnect and see where am I out of balance and how can I bring myself back into
Yeah,
balance.
yeah. And once again, reconnection takes time for yourself to reflect. It's so important to be able to step out of your routines, to step out of your race, to understand also how we are wired as human beings, and that we are, by definition, focused on the routine and taking the same steps and doing the same all the time. And so it takes a little bit of effort and courage. But you can also make that kind of a habit to carve out some time to ask yourself, what am I doing? How has this been serving me? What are my successes? And what is it that I want to change? Those are all very easy and yet very important questions that we can ask ourselves. Ideally, I would say every day. If that is not possible, or if you need to start somewhere, I would say ideally every week, at the end
Yeah,
of the week or at the beginning of a week, in order to be able to calibrate and to redirect or refocus when it's necessary. It's about understanding that things are not the way they are because they are like that. They are because we make those choices. And sometimes they are like that because we don't make choices. But then not making a choice is also choosing. And
right.
it's that awareness and that consciousness that you already mentioned that is so important to cultivate and to activate. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
We always have a choice. So before we get out of bed, because then we will be in that roller coaster. Take a breath, think, what is my intention for today? What gives me
Exactly.
energy? And focus more on what gives energy and joy because it's a multiplier.
Mhm.
of
Absolutely.
time as well, if we're so fixated on this physical time. In quantum physics, time is an illusion, so it's not about time, it's about energy. So the
Absolutely.
mindset.
You were talking about mindfulness and living in the present, living in the now. If we step a little bit aside from that, if you look at what you still want to manifest in life, what do you believe that are some boundaries that you still want to break or need to break in order to get to the next level? What would that be for you?
Life gives situations, and at the end of the day, going through life and focusing on that, the impact that I want to create, and I really want to bring more well-being and balance to people and teams and give them the tools, easy, practical tools and mindset to do that, so they don't feel stuck and limited and out of choice, because there's always choice. And so I'm free to support people on those journeys, because there is a different way with less stress and struggle and suffering and conflict. There's just a different way, and it's right there, accessible and available for everybody.
Hmm. Talking about that, Natalia, you have a website and you have a lot of information available on the internet, and we will make sure also that the URLs and all the contact information are in the show notes and in the comments. Everybody that wants to connect with Natalia, just go there and see what is most relevant or what is the easiest for you to connect. Natalia, you also had a giveaway, a gift for the audience. What exactly is that? We will also make sure that the link for that is in the show notes, but something that they can use to break boundaries or to bring that balance. What
Certainly, certainly. Whoever adds sends their details on the link. I'll send the Wellbeing Leadership Guide, and we can always set up a free call to have a personal, tailored approach to make sure that you feel supported in moving forward and crossing your boundaries and breakthrough to whatever that is you dream to, and design your life and your workplace so it works for you.
And this leadership guide is like the guide in order to get there, to bring that
For sure.
knowledge and bring
Sure.
the tools, strategies for that.
Yeah, the balance
Mm.
and balancing high performance and well-being. We
Yeah,
can have it
that's good.
all. There's no need to
You can have
choose.
it all or not.
Of course you can. Health and success, money and relationships.
Yeah, everything is combinable. Yeah, absolutely. Natalia, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and your wisdom and your expertise with us, and also for being so generous with leadership guides. I'm really looking forward to delve into that one. So, if you want to connect with Natalia once again, find everything on the show notes and also the link for this leadership guide. And there's also the information to connect directly to book a call with her if you want to find out more about how you or your team or your organization can bring that balance between well-being and high performance. Because as we said, and as Natalia shows, it is perfectly possible. So thank you so much for being with us. Natalia, thank you
You.
for your generosity, for your time and your presence. Looking forward to learn more about you. And for the audience, we see you next week. Take care and bye for now.